Hello guys, my name is Arun and welcome to my channel. This series is a series of tutorials on scientific programming or computing using Python. Okay, now in the last session, the last video, we were looking at NumPy arrays and advanced data types related to uh, scientific computation and everything. Today we look at the for and while loops, and other than that we look at if clauses, function, a little bit of functions, slicing, and how to import modules, and after that we look at exercises today. Okay, that's what we look at today, so let's begin with straight away. Now for and while loops are actually quite useful for doing a lot of repetitive processes in programming. For instance, let's say you want to do a certain job like 10 times, but one after the other. Okay, but each of these times you want to do the job. Okay, you want to get a certain different kind of an output or different kind of an execution, but the pattern is more or less the same. Now one way of achieving that kind of a process is by using for loops. Okay, now let me walk you guys through this example to explain what's going on. See this statement over here. It says for I in range 0, 11, 2 with a colon and then prints I. Now let me run this code for you guys and show what's happening. I'll copy this statement over here, and you guys open your terminal and everything and see what's going on. Yeah, and one more thing, press pwd over here to see where your where your file is, path is. This path and this path over here should be the same, and here it's the same, so no problem, you can go about with it. Okay, now what I do, I just type I just type the commands over here in the terminal, the console. I press enter. It gives me the output 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Now let me walk you guys through what's happening. What happens is that now this for loop, okay, executes say a certain number of times based on the condition you give over here. And for each, whenever the condition is satisfied whenever the condition you kept here is proper, okay, this is going to repeat. Okay, let me explain. Now what happens is that now this range command, this range function will be returning you certain values. Okay, the values will start from 0 and will have a maximum value of, it will go from 0 to 10. Okay, not 11, they will go to 10. Okay, always in Python, if you have a number, if you have indexing or two entries like this, the first value will indicate the starting point, whereas the second value like this will indicate the last value plus 1 unit. So that's what it happens here. Range function delivers values from 0 to 10 here, and this 2 makes sure that you get the result in steps of 2. Okay, and I will take all these values from steps of 2, from 0, 2, 4, 6, 8 and 10 up to 10, and for each value of I, all the statements that are below get executed. Now here it will print I. Now if you look at the result is 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. It's because I changes its value to 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 in every iteration, and then it goes on, and that's why you get the result like this. Okay, now let's looking at a little more complicated example. Now here if you see, we use the value of I from the range function over here. Now, there are other possible ways as well. What you can do is that if you set a matrix like this, let's say, or it's actually a two-dimensional. This is a two-dimensional array with I guess if my understanding is right, 3 rows and 3 columns. Okay, this is a NumPy array of 3 rows and 3 columns. So if you write this for statement for val in BP, what will happen is that this entire array will be unpacked with major elements grouping together. So when you write, so for val and vp, okay, the value that val will take will be this in the first iteration will take this list as the value, and then for second iteration it will take this list as the value, and for the third iteration it will take this list as the value. Okay, and that is what it happens here for val and vp. And when you execute this, the print statement val will be equal to 1 2 3 in the first iteration, 4 5 6 in the second iteration, and 7 8 9 in the third iteration, like that. Okay, now here what I have is that I have a nested for loop, meaning one for loop within the other. And in this for loop, okay, I said for num and val, meaning now what I'm doing is that I'm getting the val over here, value, or this matrix over here, and I'm unpacking this matrix. Now when I unpack this matrix, okay, or else I break this matrix, I'll be getting three values, 1 2 and 3 for the first iteration for this val, and the second iteration 4 5 6, and then for third iteration of the main top loop I'll get a 7 8 9. So you will be getting and for each of these values 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9, you will be getting values. So for each value of val you will get 3 iterations over here. So but since there are 3 iterations for val over here, you'll be getting like 9 total iterations. Okay, now what happens is that val will here take 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 in each of the iteration. In the subsequent sub iteration you will have the values 1 for num will take 1 2 3 when val is 1 2 3, 4 5 6 when val is 4 5 6, 7 8 9 when the val is 7 8 9, like that, and this runs. Okay, and one more thing is that keep a note on the indentation. You see this? Okay, you see, I don't know whether it will come or not, but you see this indentation over here? Yeah, this indentation tells Python that all the commands that are written below are actually a part of this for loop. Now if you break this indentation, that commands now if you break this indentation, it tells the compiler that this part, whatever that follows below, are not a part of this for loop. The only exception is comments, because command lines are actually ignored. So exceptions are comments. Okay, now I'll explain the same thing over here. See, in this for loop statement, all these statements over here are actually a part of this for loop, whereas this line over here, this I equals 0, is not a part of this for loop, because this has a different indentation when compared to these values. These have one indentation and this line has a different indentation, so they do not have the same indentation. So this I equals 0 is a part of the main program, and it's not a part of this for loop. So see, print, for, and everything, all of these are part of this. Okay, and now let's look at this thing. Look at this line. Print num is actually a part of this for loop, and since this for loop is already a part of this for loop, this statement is kind of inherently a part of this for loop. So it's like saying that square is a quadrilateral, whereas quadrilateral is a polygon. Like that, this is a polygon, and this is a quadrilateral, and this is a square. So inherently, square is a polygon. It's like that. Or else, if you want a better example, I'm a boy, I'm a student. So inherently, a student is a human. Like that. A boy is a human. But the boy is also a student. So actually, the student here is a human. Like that. It's kind of that kind of a analogy here. So this part is a part of this for loop, but since this for loop is already a part of this for loop, this statement is inherently a part of this for loop. Okay, like that. And this way, if you want to write another nested, this way of writing one for loop within the other for loop is called as nested looping. Now let's run this, so that if you run this, you'll get the output. You'll get this output up to here. Now let's run this. I'll show you guys what's happening over here. Okay, now if I run this, okay, now okay, it says that okay, it needs two more stuff. It needs to copy this statement also has to be there. Okay, and then numpy is not defined. So it's better import that. import numpy as np, it's needed. Now if I run this, run current line, L is not defined, okay, L is not defined, yeah, okay, fine, L is not defined, okay, I get it. I need to run this as well, current selection, this is run. Now if I run this, statements, okay, there you have it. The result comes like this. When you have the val will print 1 2 3 and then keep it as it is, whereas the inner, these three come from this print num statement. 4 5 6 comes from 1 2, this val equals 1 2 3, val equals 4 5 6, val equals 7 8 10 come from this, these, and 4 5 6 7 8 9 they come from these statements. Okay, clear enough? Okay, like that you can also have a while loop that also does the same process. Copy this, paste this. Okay, now what this while loop does is that while I is within the, what it says is that whenever the condition, when I is when the variable satisfies the condition given in this, given over here, all the statements are at the below it or a part of it gets executed. Okay, and when the condition is broken down, this file, that loop terminates. Until then it will be repeating again and again and again and again and again and so on, like that. Now what I've done is that I just initialize I to be 0, and then while I is in range 0, while I in range 0, 11, meaning I ranges from 0 to 10 in steps of 1. Okay, I will be printed one after the other, and then after printing each value, I gets incremented by one value. So if I is 0, after printing 0, it will increment by one value. Okay, this is like addition increment operator. That's not the loose, that's actually a loose term, but I think that it's not really necessary, but that's how the term goes by. If we were to run this, okay, this is the statement, and this is the result. You get the values printed from 0 to 10, and then we look at the I value. Ultimately will reach 11, but 11 will not be a part of this 0 to 11 range, so it terminates, the while loop terminates like that. And that is about for loop and while loop. And why I am emphasizing this is because of indentation, and these for loops and while loops can be used very 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 often during computations for different algorithms. So it's kind of necessary to understand for loops and while loops quite nicely. Okay, now let's look at the other thing, if clause. Now if clause is pretty much simple. What it says is based on a common logic. Like let's say if you want to get something, let's say you're going for a shopping mall and you say, okay, you just want to get a chocolate. Okay, if you let's say, okay, I want a Mars bar. If Mars bar is present, I'll get it. Okay, if it's not there, let me go for some other chocolate like Snickers. If that is not there, I'll go to some other chocolate, that Hershey chocolate, like that. If none of these are happening, I'll just get the first chocolate that comes in my mind. Okay, if that is kind of a thought process we might go. If one is present, we'll do that. If not, something else. Like that. Okay, that is what if statement does. It checks whether a certain condition is satisfied. If that is satisfied, it does a certain operations. If it's not satisfied, it will check for some other alternate condition. If that is satisfied, it does that operation. If it's not, then some other alteration. Finally, if none of the alternatives work out fine, it will have some predefault job that can be done. Okay, let me follow this code for you. This is actually a small if statement for calculating the factorial of a number. Okay, you guys, if those of you guys who haven't known what factorial of a number is, you can guys just check. It's just a consecutive multiplication of all the integers from 1 to a particular number. So if you want to find the factorial of 6, you have to multiply 1. You have to multiply all the numbers, all the integers from 1 to 6 to get the answer. Okay, so it's like 1 times 2 times 3 times 4 times 5 times 6. Okay, that will be 720. Now what this does is that this if clause does is that here is an example. I set f to be 1. I get the value from I get the number from the user, okay, and I check whether in this statement I check whether if the value of n is actually an integer at that instance. To check whether this number is an integer, to check whether that number in that instance is integer, I use this function called as isInstance. It just checks whether the value is integer or not. Simple as that. If that is true, if this is true, if this if statement is true, then all these lines that come as a part of this indentation, okay, are executed by because if this statement is true, indicating these lines are a part of this if statement, okay, because of this indentation. Now if this is false, I'll automatically go to this else statement over here and execute this statement. Simple as that. Now here I have it is a nested if statement, so pay a little close attention, guys. Now if this is true, this statement is true, okay, then it will go to the first line over here and check whether this condition is true. If n is 1 or 0, what it means is I'm just checking whether if n is 1 or 0, okay. If this is true, then this print statement gets executed, and then the value of this statement gets executed, and I'll explain you guys what it means, okay. And the if loop breaks down and comes over here. If loop breaks down and comes out, okay. And now if suppose if this condition is broken down, it will go to this elif statement. Elif is actually a short form of else if, nothing more, nothing less. It's just a short form of else if. Now it checks whether the number is negative, okay. Integers can return positive or negative, that's not a problem. But so what if the number is negative? The number is negative, you just have to say the print statement says that the number is negative and it comes out. And else, if these two are proper, it means that the number, if this condition is true, and if this condition is true and this condition is false, this condition is true and if these two conditions are false, it means that what you have is that you have an integer which is not 1 or 0, at the same time it's not negative. So it has to be a positive integer, greater than 1, positive integer greater than 1, so 2 or above, so for which a factorial program is possible. So what it does is that it runs a for loop, okay. It runs a for loop and it goes on successive multiplication. For each value of I, the I values changes from 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and all, okay. If you enter if n is 6, this range will go to up to range. If n is 6, this range command is actually from 2 to 7. So since 7 is ignored, the multiplication goes up to 6. So f gets multiplied by 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6, and then the result gets printed. Now let me explain you guys about this statement format this print statement over here. This prints this string, okay. Now what does this dot format thing does is that, see, you have if you see the statement, this curly braces statement over here and here, the values that enter you over here get placed over here. Like these curly braces are just placeholder positions for the values over here. So what will happen is that instead of this curly braces, the value of n will gets printed over here, and instead of this curly braces, the value of f gets printed over here. That's it. And then let's say if you have like 15 items to be placed in this single string, then you have to enter 15 values in this format. Now separated by comma. If values are mismatched, if values are a little less in number or something of that sort, if the brackets are more or the numbers are less or something of that sort, then this will throw an error. Now this is how the if statement works, okay. Now this will check whether this is true. This entire statement will start to begin, and then this if statement begins. If this is true, it will print this and exits. Or else if this is true, this exit prints, and if all of these are false, this operation does and then works out and then comes out. So let's run this, shall we? Now if I copy all this and I paste them over here. I could write this in the console itself, but this is easy for visual. It's easy. This has little less space over here, whereas this has enough space. That's the reason. Now if I run this run selection or comment line, okay, Now the console is waiting. It's asking me enter a value of m. Okay, let me enter a value like 9. Press enter. It says that when it does all the operations, this statement gets broken down. This statement is false, this statement is false, this statement becomes true. So this is what is happening, and it prints the value of 9 factorial as 362880. Let's check it out, shall we? So let's keep a value like g equals 1 times 2 times 3 times 4 times 5 times 6 times 7 times 8 times 9. Okay, I do that. So that's the definition of factorial. If I press enter, okay, g gets executed, and if you look at the value of f and g over here, f is the factorial value, g is the actual value we calculate right now. They're both the same, indicating that the factorial program has run nicely. Simple as that. Okay, that's about if clause. And if clause is very essential because many times you can come across these.